And besides this challenge of not remaining in some boundaries or just in some perfectionism and standards, what do you think, what are other challenges a pianist faces nowadays in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot, of course, because, we are living in a world where there are many, many people on Earth. And of course, there are many people who want to become professional pianists, and give
Yes.
concert. And this is, of course, just not possible mathematically that everybody succeeds. On the contrary, And so humanity invented these things like competition in order to try to measure something, to make it easier. But yeah, I am not so convinced about that concept altogether. But there are immense big challenges in order to establish a career. I think if you are studying music or arts or anything that has to do with arts, actually,
Okay.
and you have the idea to become a successful whatever, then you already lost, probably.
Why?
Yeah,
Explain me,
because
please.
you cannot start studying music with the aim to be successful, because you don't know. You just don't know. Studying music, studying some kinds of arts is some exploration in your inner self, to go to your absolute limits in many ways, psychologically, physically, mentally, in many ways, spiritually, maybe,
Okay.
and it you don't know if this will have a success or not, if people will have some reaction to that, if you will be very lucky to meet people
The right
that can
person.
help you establish a network, for example, which is very important nowadays. If you have a possibility to draw people's attention to you because of, I don't know, whatever you call it on stage, charisma or something, there are so many factors that you probably cannot control fully, at least, So if you
Yeah.
truly love music and you feel the absolute need to express something, then yeah, you should study and you should become, but not with the aim of being successful. Hopefully that happens automatically when you're really convinced about that, whatever success means for one,
Yes, this is my next question. Then what should successful career means to a pianist? Because it's somehow normal that after practicing hundreds of hours and being alone and isolated and not, I don't know, enjoying life outside, you want at least to be appreciated. You want to be known as a good pianist. Isn't normal this expectation?
Yeah, it seems normal. Nowadays it is normal, I think. Maybe it always was normal. I don't know, actually. For me, I mean, I was lucky enough to have some kind of a career and have some kind of concerts, and I know that this had to do with a tremendous luck, of course, as well. So I'm in a very good and privileged position in hindsight to say that for me, after all, the real success were the moments when I really could share this kind of tremendous joy and love I feel for music. And that was not necessarily in the big concert halls, Sometimes it was in very small occasions. Sometimes it is more in teaching than in concerts. And then other times it is happening in big concerts or with big orchestras. It doesn't matter so much. But, I got to know so many fantastic people, musicians, teachers, that teachers, for example, that teach little children, and have an incredibly mind to share with children and to inspire them to understand this magical language. And they were incredibly successful,
And maybe happy.
Yes, and happy, exactly. Maybe not as rich as some performing artists, you know, didn't have a lot of fame. And yeah, I don't know, but you know, this is whatever you choose. I was at one point in my own career in front of what is it called in English? I had to decide between two ways, two paths, actually, you know, either to go on with a concert career and to hope that it will, of course, grow and sustain and so on, or that I will go into teaching and spend considerate time, a lot of time
With the students.
of my time into teaching, yeah, with my students, which means, of course, less popularity, less concerts, less money, you know, all
Yes.
that kinds of things. But I was lucky to have always two very important people, and both were some kind of role models, you know. And one was very successful, very well known all over the world, and somewhat lonely. And the other one, nobody knew, and had an incredibly rich and beautiful life. Was very happy, and both were in the very privileged situation to be able to share music in very different ways. And in the end, I always thought that the latter would be what I preferred.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'm trying, of course, to make a mix, but you know, everything is living. And who knows what I say tomorrow, but for the moment, success really means for me to be able to share what I love.
But at that moment, at that cross moment, these two models were like decision point in your life, and you choose what you thought is the best for you then.
Yes, I went with my guts feeling.
Okay. So then maybe a pianist should be like open and explore and see how life it goes. And I think this flexibility of thinking, to not think if I don't win that competition, I will not be successful or I will not be happy. It may be a solution. What do you think?
Yes, it could be. I mean, you know, competition can be good, of course. You know, preparing for a competition can be good to explore your own limits, your own depths. You can go in many physical ways and concentrational ways and so on. But let's say you win a huge international competition, and then you get a very well-known agency that organizes concerts for you, you know, and you establish a career with the way you won the competition, which usually means that you have to play something, you have to practice something very secured, and then you have to repeat it on stage, because you cannot take any risks in competitions.
Yes, no risk.
At least not specific kind of risks, at least. And that means, okay, so you were successful with this method. Does it mean that you go on with this kind of method for the rest of your life, for many decades more, hopefully? This will be for me, it would be very sad. For me, it would be very boring and untruthful to music, because it would be less in arts than in handcraft, actually, or even sports at some point.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah. So, you know, but if there are people who are really happy with this kind of approach, then it's fine. I just doubt so much that it's really about arts than about handcraft anymore, you know, which can be very admirable and very, very beautiful.
And did you always had this idea of risking on stage, or how your relationship with music was changed over time? Generally
No,
speaking.
I didn't always have that. Of course, I discovered that at some points, part by part, piece by piece. You know, you get to know many people inspire you. You are opening some doors by accident sometimes, you know, open new possibilities. So it was a constant process, but it was in hindsight always as if you were drawn magnetically to this kind of your personal philosophy, your personal kind of truth, unavoidably. Or I would have become very sad, probably. I don't know. In the end, I was just lucky to find that out for myself, you know, and I'm trying to pass on that to my students, not necessarily for them to become fantastic handcraft workers and pianists, but fulfilled human beings that can share their inner self in form of arts, of an artistic expression. And this is some aspect that needs time and peace and calmness for exploration, depth, discipline, and all these kind of factors sometimes are not really supported by the way of a career that nowadays is established traditionally with whatever it
That's
is.
true. And it's like it needs a major process, time. It cannot change like this in someone's mind.
No, it's not. It takes time. You know, it's just like the practice of concentration, the practice of listening to oneself, to step one step back from the picture to see the whole. That is not able to do from now to tomorrow. It needs time, everything. But this is the wonderful thing about music and about practicing as well. You know, some people, especially young students, you know, they get very impatient, you know, and they practice over and over again the same things.
Fast, and loud.
Fast. And yeah, a beautiful truth when you really play something, practice something very slowly, and you look at it under the microscope, you know,
and
with
explore.
calmness. Yeah, you earn so much more. Yeah, but you know, nowadays everything, our whole world with technical support and so on is yeah, motivating us to do everything faster. But it's Trugschluss, as we say in German, a fake end. I don't know what the English word is, but you know, all the things that are meant to save us time. It doesn't take so much time anymore to write an email or SMS like it did a few decades ago when you had to write a letter.
Yes.
All these things that are supposed to save time in the end have the contrast as a result. You know, we have less and less time because we have to do so many more emails, so many more SMS, so many more WhatsApp messages within a short time. And they are expected of us to be answered very quickly as well. So the result is like a spiral. Everybody feels to have less and less time, fewer and fewer time. And practicing the piano, music, classical music especially, is a wonderful way cleanse oneself from that somewhat, you know.
Yeah. How is this reflecting in your teaching? Because I know a secret that you're teaching also not only to pianists, to students, but also to other students. Can you tell me more about this, please?
Yeah. I mean, of course, mainly my class consists of pianists, you know, but especially at the university I'm teaching, the Academy of Music in Norway, in Oslo, we have this wonderful philosophy of open doors. You know, the professors come to each other rooms and can listen, you know, and we are also exchanging students, send them to this professor. And not only when I'm teaching chamber music, but also, you know, when I have deep bondings to one or other colleague, you know, then I can teach a totally different instrument. For example, last semester, I taught a lot of violin, but also harp, which usually you would not connect so much with piano. And the idea
It's
behind
different.
that, yeah, absolutely. And the idea behind that is that it should be mainly about the music. And when you are not coming from the same instrument, then you are sometimes not aware of the physical possibilities, limitations of an instrument, for example, you know. So I have no idea, of course, as a pianist, what is possible on the harp and what not.
Yeah, technically speaking,
And
yeah.
technically speaking, yeah, exactly. And then it can be incredibly helpful and also supportive for the student to step out of this limited way of thinking, because we always have to think as the composer, you know, when the piece was being created in someone's mind, you know, in the composer's mind. And sometimes some composers especially, didn't think in terms of musical, instrumental limitations, you know. For example, like Schubert or Schumann, they really thought a lot of outside of the score, and they tried to use the score to get as close as possible to their ideal, to their idea. Sometimes,
Brahms
you
as
know,
well. Yes.
and yeah, absolutely, Brahms as well. You know, probably couldn't have written the violin concerto sufficingly without the help of Joseph Joachim. But you know, some composers are really trying to use the score to get as close as possible to this original idea. But we, as instrumentalists, as especially soloists, sometimes get stuck in our what we're used to with the instrument, what is possible, what is technically maybe even comfortable, and so on. So that we automatically step into this mode rather than trying to step one step back and trying to figure out what happened before the composer has written down the music on the paper. What has happened here at the composer? What has happened here? How it came to this idea, to this process of creating, you know, of this moment of creation somewhat. And therefore it can be really fruitful being teaching from another instrument, so to speak, you know, to come closer to that. Of course, it's sometimes just not possible and so on, you know, but this is, we have to explore it again and again. And I just can recommend that kind of exchange, because it's for both sides incredibly beautiful and learning.
Yeah, I think it's great. From the beginning, you step out of routine and just experiencing and trying to understand music, not the instrument. And this is really great.